And up next, we have Daniel Kleinman with Diving into BlueTech.
I see some familiar faces in the audience. Shout out to Manuel Makeda as well. But yeah, great to be here, and really just love to support fellow community builders and ecosystem builders. So glad to be able to support. So I'm Daniel. I'm the founder and CEO of Seaworthy Collective. We're a nonprofit based here in Miami that supports current and aspiring entrepreneurs developing solutions for ocean impact. And as you can see on the slide, we really embrace this bottom-up approach of not only building community and raising awareness, but leading people to the tangible opportunity to develop solutions so that we can build an ecosystem for ocean innovation, both regionally and globally. And we do that a couple different ways. If you can click for me, sorry, you're gonna do a lot of clicking here, like I said. But so the first piece, as raising awareness, is how we educate people on what the ocean economy is or blue economy is. We have our Sea Change Maker series, which is panels featuring our founders, and a fellowship program as well to help people get experiential learning on developing ocean innovation startups. And then our flagship event is our startup showcase we have coming up next month. But then you can click again. Our flagship program is our Startup Student Incubator, where we support both current founders who already have their ideas, as well as aspiring entrepreneurs who we co-create around them based on their skill sets to develop new startups. You can go to the next slide. So to date, we've now supported 111 entrepreneurs over the last 5.5 years. We're currently in the middle of our seventh cohort, 57 startups who've raised over $34 million to date. But what we're most proud of is actually the fact that when we first started, there wasn't really an ecosystem for doing this kind of work here in South Florida, despite the obvious opportunity of being surrounded by water. And we've seen over a 10x growth in local, regionally based startups. You can go to the next slide. So now to talk about some lessons learned that are in our experience, but we see kind of being very emblematic of the broader sector as a whole right now. So back at the beginning of last year, we won a $14 million grant with NOAA for our partnership called the Continuum, which is supporting ocean enterprise or ocean data startups. But as you all know, last year was certainly not a very stable year for those of us who are federally funded. So if you kind of click again real quick, this is where I bring some comedy in. So just when you think you have it all figured out, there's truly no very very little such thing as full stability. And so as you all know, if you want to click one more time, there was obviously the grant freeze, but more importantly it forced us to take a step back and reevaluate a lot of our strategy, as many of us did last year to pivot. And so basically, things have gotten a little more stable in this year, at least the months that followed. Really, I'd love to just share some of our lessons learned that went back to even our earliest strategy. I took this from we have an event here called F Up Nights here in Miami, and I know they have events otherwise or elsewhere that basically were some of our screw ups that hopefully you can learn from and that many of our founders have learned from. So first and foremost is business model. For anyone else here that runs a nonprofit, traditionally we all depend pretty much on one source of revenue. For us, it was primarily the government as a federally funded organization, and we won 5 federal grants over the last uh, few years. Um, but then on the flip side, when it came to strategy, we really had all of our eggs in one basket last year with NOAA being our only funder for 2025, other than one other small grant that we won. And so, all of that to say, it was both diversifying our revenue streams and knowing that even though we typically have gotten customers or partners that were few but deep commitments, we knew we had to come up with other ways to actually start to get revenue, and more importantly, keep the lights on through a very uncertain time as federal funding was up in the air last year. And then last and most importantly, there's a lot of idealism, I think, in a lot of the work we all do. As an engineer personally, my idealism was not having patience for politics and policy. And I came face to face with that last year because we did not have a choice, and ended up going on Capitol Hill for the first time and actually meeting with staffers and lawmakers who can help actually, on both sides of the aisle, believe it or not, support the work we do and understand the value of building Florida and US's ocean economy. So you can go to this final slide. Basically, a couple of learnings just to share, which again, really, I think is just for many folks who are either maybe earlier on and hopefully can get ahead of some of these mistakes or, just understand some of the realities, at least of building. What I like to call imposter stability is a real thing, where, you can never take for granted what you have today might be gone tomorrow. So always building for resilience. If there are any funders in the room, I love to say that patient capital, aka unrestricted capital in the nonprofit space, is really, really critical because if everything is scoped for grants, then that means there's nothing held in reserves for founders or for startups and nonprofits to be able to continue on in case things don't go the way we plan. We also faced a lot of hard decisions last year. I don't have time to get into all of them, but just to say that it's really important to understand what aligns with your values and what doesn't. And then also, how you can leverage what we call the eight forms of capital. If anyone's deep into the regenerative space, things outside of financial capital that can really help you, especially on the social capital front, like board members, partners, and networks like this. And then most importantly, just as I mentioned, getting on Capitol Hill, being able to embrace these opportunities, get out of your comfort zone. One of the best things about entrepreneurship is that just like academia isn't the only form of lifelong learning. And so it's really, really important to do that. So that's a quick dive into what our last year or so has been like. But more importantly, when we talk about building for the future of our oceans and the blue economy, this is what we love to preach at Seaworthy is that there's a lot of preconceived notions when it comes to the blue economy and getting involved in ocean innovation. And the reality is that you don't have to have a marine science degree or PhD to do this work. And so if you're looking to dive in and get into BlueTech, we support those who already may have early stage ideas or don't even have the idea and are just looking to get involved and maybe even go create a startup. So we have our info here and happy to answer any questions you all have on what it means to get in the space.